I never know what I'm going to decode every day, but I just usually go where my curiosity takes me, and it usually lands me on some synchronicities. Today is Tuesday, ruled by the planet Mars, and we've seen quite a lot of symbolism hinting at future planetary life on Mars, specifically by the technocrat Elon Musk. I view literally everything as an encoded system. So when I think of Mars, I actually think of the anagram, which would be a RAM, like a ram's head or random access memory, data files. You may have noticed that a lot of technocrats are a bit fascinated with immortality, which takes us back to the stories of ancient Egypt that we may think have disappeared but never fully left. Because when I think of Mars, I think of the crown of Hathor. Now, ancient Egyptians also marked the body as different entry points followed in the Book of the Dead or the Book of Going Forth by Day. As you can see, the crown of Hathor mimics the pituitary gland of the brain, which could introduce the concept that the process of going forth by day or the afterlife is associated with memory, death, and rebirth. Now, of course, naturally, I pulled a gematria cipher just to find a symbolic thread, and the word Mars and pituitary gland both match in the reverse in Latin ciphers in the number 201. Now, this takes me back to my reference point with Elon Musk and all of his talk about occupying Mars. Because if Mars is truly associated with the RAM, then it would make a lot of sense to why he chose this logo for Tesla. And the Tesla coil looks pretty similar to the head of a ram or to the female uterus, as the fallopian tubes and the ovaries mimic horns. Life is first created and sustained within the feminine womb. Also naming his company after Nikola Tesla, who believed that humanity's future would be run by queen bees and that women would be the dominant sex in the future, could really make you evaluate all the rumors that we've seen about Elon Musk's work with robotics. Now, one of the things I found really interesting that one of my Discord members shared was that Elon Musk was married to Tallulah Riley up until 2016. They were actually married twice. If you're not familiar with Tallulah Riley, she plays the host Angela on the show Westworld. Now, the show Westworld is about a park full of hosts in a place called Delos, which in Greek mythology was the birthplace of Apollo and Artemis. But we'll get back to that in a second. Now, remember I mentioned that Tallulah plays one of the first hosts that we meet on the show Westworld. Here's a clip.
You want to ask, so ask.
Are you real?
Well, if you can't tell, does it matter?
Now, with all of his work at Starbase Texas, there's a lot of interesting recurring themes. Now, the fact that they decided to name the park Artemis was really interesting. His company is planning a future launch from Starbase in 2026, which you guys know piqued my interest because the name of his rocket is called the Starship. And recently, Nicki Minaj released a statement. She says, "Life cannot just be about solving one miserable problem after another. Speak, Elon, we're listening." Now, considering there's been jokes about him and female robots before, that he's been engaged with many women who seem to fulfill this feminine archetype associated with advanced robotics, I thought it was pretty interesting that Nicki Minaj herself has a song called Starships that was released on February 14th, 2012. And considering her work as a Barbie, recognized version of the divine feminine, as well as her music video with Ice Spice that mirrors a 2001 Space Odyssey, and the fact that the song came out on February 14th, the same day that the Sophia bot was activated at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, definitely had a recurring theme to it. And going back a bit to Project Artemis, the logo looks very similar to the poster for Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. And remember, Stanley Kubrick also directed a 2001 Space Odyssey. I saw an interview not too long ago with Elon and Lex Friedman where he references a Clockwork Orange. He talks about us being able to breathe 78% nitrogen and mentions that this milk bar or nitrogen bar that Lex is handing him is like from Clockwork Orange, which when we're referencing milk, we're referencing the Milky Way galaxy. And milk is a recurring theme in the show Westworld. And there's a whole lot of other connections that I've seen between the supercomputer that's being built in Memphis, which goes back to Heliopolis and the site of Ben, which would be like the Egyptian version of Delos in my opinion, but also the connections of artificial intelligence, the themes of space, and Texas possibly as a grounding site for the rebirth of the divine feminine by way of technology.